Okay, let's explore a few more attributes for inputs. So go ahead and go to your module folder and open up the fifth step, which is called More Attributes. Copy the entire code and paste it into your .module file and save it. Okay. In this file, we've added a new page to hook menu that calls a new form function that will return a render array for a form that includes a demonstration of more attributes. So if you scroll up to the top, you'll see we have a new item here called input/examples/more. And we're using the page callback Drupal Get Form, so we're calling the form array directly, and we're passing it the parameter input more form, which is the function that would get called to return our form. So let's go ahead and scroll down to the input more form function. Okay, here we are. Let's just go ahead and go through this from top to bottom. So first we're adding an element called computer, and it's of type radios, which is similar to checkboxes in terms of the attributes that it takes, except that radios is a one-only selection, whereas checkboxes can be many. We've given it a title of Do You Own a Computer? And options, and you notice we're passing it an array, and the array that we pass to radios has to be associative. So we need a key and a value for each item we pass to it. We're passing it two items, yes and no. The key is the value of it, so if yes is selected, then it will be a lowercase y, yes, that gets passed to the function. And then no, which is structured the same way. And we're making this required, so somebody has to select an option. Our next item here is a field set, and we're giving it the name computer stats. The role of a field set is to encapsulate several other inputs in a way that's easy to visualize. Also, there's a parameter you can pass through the form attributes called tree, which will allow you to, when you go to process a form or validate a form, do so as a hierarchical array. By default, when we have a field set and we have items within that field set, they'll all get passed on the same level in that form state array. But if we use tree, anything that's inside of a field set will get passed as being embedded inside of another array. So as we look through some examples, we'll see how that works later on. So we're giving this computer stats item a title, and there's some special attributes for a field set, namely collapsible and collapsed. Collapsible means that there will be a little arrow that will allow a user to collapse or expand the field set, and collapsed is the current state of it. We're setting it to false, which means that it will be expanded by default. Our next item here demonstrates how to add an item to a field set. We do so by adding it to the field set array. So we have form computer stats, which is defined here, and then we're adding an item to it called thickness, which is just inside of that field set array. This type is a text field, which we used in our previous example. We're giving it a title, and then we're giving it a few extra parameters here. Field prefix, which will show up before the field, and field suffix, which will show up after the field. So for measurements, this works very well as a suffix. We're passing in a max length, which is how long the text can be inside of the input, and the size, which is how wide the input is. Notice that we're wrapping T functions around all of our text so that it makes it translatable. That's not done by default, so we want to make sure to do that. And we're adding one more item to the computer stats field set called heft. We're giving it a title, and the type this time is select, and we're passing it a set of options, just like we did with the radios array. In this one, we have just a slightly more extended version, so we have our array items on separate lines for small, medium, and heavy. I'm going to scroll down. We have one more element that we're adding to this form, and we're giving it the name of help. And the type is markup. Markup is anytime we want to add HTML directly to the form that doesn't have any input associated with it. And then we also pass it the special parameter markup, which includes the markup itself. So what we're doing is passing it some information that has a link to that URL I mentioned from before that points to all of the attributes and elements that you can use. And then finally, we're adding our form submit. So this is a submit type, and we're setting the value to submit. And then we're returning the form. So let's go ahead and save this, and then jump back to our browser, and we're going to flush the caches. And I'm going to come back here and grab the path, input examples more, and I'm going to paste this into the address bar. Okay, so now we have our radios here. We have our text with our prefix and our suffix. We have our heft with 3 different items in our select box, and our markup here. And finally, our submit button. One other thing to take note of here is this field set is collapsible because we set that as one of the attributes. So we can click on the title to collapse it or expand it. And if we had set the collapsed attribute to true, it would have begun in this state, and in order to expand it, a user would have had to have clicked on the title. So that would be good for an optional set of inputs.